What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Full 90. It is time today for the Week 14 Premier League predictions. But before I get into that, I just want to say I am currently working on creating an Instagram called TF90 Tips, which is basically where I'm going to be posting some betting tips on Instagram to basically help you guys win some money. Because in the last couple of weeks, there's been a few people saying they've won some money using my predictions. We had S. Murick, who won $950 for putting a bet on Wolves to beat Aston Villa 2-1, like I said in my video. I thought I'd test the waters, try out a few bets over the weekend with the Premier League and with other leagues, and I had a pretty successful weekend, and it would be great for me to share these tips with you on Instagram just for a bit of fun. There was a pretty embarrassing cash out. I put $100 on a little double, Tottenham and both teams to score and Barcelona and both teams to score. Barcelona won 2-1, Tottenham was 3-0 up, and I cashed out at about $320 because I didn't think West Ham would score. West Ham did score, so that would have won $975. I did have another cash out which got me $700 in profit, but then the main three are the three coming up on the screen now. I had an in-play bet on AZ Alkmaar to win to 0. I had a cheeky fourfold that ended up becoming a treble because the Cagliari game got postponed. That was a nice little flurry there, and the two draw no bet selections of Sevilla and Marseille actually ended up winning outright, so I could have got much better odds for that if I was a bit more brave. And of course the big one, a cheeky double on the Inter Milan game, which, by the way, 1.9 odds for Inter Milan to win away in that game were ridiculous. I probably could have even gone half-time, full-time. They just dominated that game as expected. I don't know why the odds were so inflated. And then the Real Madrid game against Real Sociedad, again, a fairly predictable game, and that was a really nice bet to have there. So if you guys are interested in that sort of thing, tips, let me know down in the comments, and once that Instagram is finalized, I'll announce it on one of these videos. I also want to give a shout out to Galaxium, who left his predictions on the Week 13 video, and I do just want to say I'm recording this Monday afternoon, so the Monday Night Football game between Newcastle and Aston Villa has not happened yet, so I don't know the result of that. But before we get into the Week 14 predictions, they're coming thick and fast for this month, I'm going to have a look back at my Week 13 predictions and let you know how I did. So kicking off, we have West Ham versus Tottenham. I got both teams to score and Tottenham to win correct, but the score slightly wrong. I went with a 2-1 win to Tottenham. It was a 3-2 win to Tottenham, so even the correct winning margin as well, so not a bad start there. And of course that was a contributing factor to one of my winning cash outs, I guess you could say. The next game, Arsenal-Southampton, I predicted a 3-2 win to Arsenal. I got the flow of the game right, just not the result. It was a 2-2 draw in the end, much to Arsenal's lucky escape against Southampton there. The next up, Bournemouth up against Wolves. I predicted a 1-1 draw, and it was a 2-1 away win to Wolves, so not too far away. Coming up after that, we had Brighton v Leicester. Again, Leicester were brilliant odds to win, and I thought it was going to be a very comfortable game, and it was. You could get 1-to-1 odds on Leicester beating Brighton. Great returns there, and they did win 2-0. I predicted a 3-1 win, but, basically the same. And I did also say in my previous week predictions video that Liverpool and both teams to score looked like a very, very solid shout for a bet, and I did actually correctly predict Liverpool to beat Crystal Palace 2-1, which was nice. There was a slip up in the week. Of course, you're not going to take 10 tips from 10 games and go from that, but I predicted Everton to beat Norwich 2-0, and Norwich beat Everton 2-0. I don't know what's wrong with Everton. Marco Silva's got to be getting close to the chopping block, but yeah, not a great result for me there at least. Next up, Watford versus Burnley. I really thought Watford had turned a corner with their win against Norwich. I predicted a 2-2 draw, but Burnley, my oh my, they turned up, and it was a 3-0 win to Burnley. The next game, Manchester City up against Chelsea. Another correct prediction. I predicted Man City to win that game 2-1 despite their injury problems, and they did just that, a 2-1 win to Manchester City. And the Sheffield United-Manchester United game, I predicted a draw between the two teams, a score draw between the two teams, and after a lot of drama, I was correct in that sense, but did not predict 3 goals apiece. And then, as I said, the Aston Villa Newcastle game hasn't happened at the time recording. So that is Week 13, a decent week. Now let's move on to Week 14. Kicking it off, we have Newcastle up against Manchester City, and this is at St James's Park. So obviously I think Manchester City are going to win, but I get the feeling Newcastle are going to find the back of the net, similar to how they did against Liverpool, I believe, at Anfield. They opened the scoring actually, and I'm going to go for a 3-1 win here to Manchester City. The odds of Man City games are never that great, but if they do let in a goal, it usually does provide pretty good value. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 win to Manchester City there. Coming up next, we have in-form Burnley up against Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace, you could argue, were unlucky to get absolutely nothing against Liverpool. Yeah, it was just the foul, the goal that was disallowed. You could argue that it doesn't play any part in the goal, but at the same time, you could argue it could have done had it not happened. So it's a grey area, and that's the issue with VAR. It's supposed to be very black and white, but it still is open to interpretation, which is where the problem lies. But I'm going to go for a Burnley win in this one at home. They're looking looking good. They're scoring goals, which is something they haven't been doing as much over the last couple of years until this season. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Burnley. I can't remember the last time I predicted a Burnley win. It's been a little while, but I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Burnley in this one. Now, the next game is Chelsea up against West Ham. I do think a 3-2 scoreline in favour of Tottenham flattered West Ham a little bit. I think Tottenham were by far the better team. So I think they're going to struggle away from home. They really are just struggling in general in the Premier League recently. Their form hasn't been great. Chelsea, on the other hand, are flying. Again, I correctly predicted Chelsea to lose by a goal to Manchester City, but by no means was it a walk in the park for Pep Guardiola and his team. Chelsea put up a great fight. I knew exactly how I thought the Manchester City-Chelsea game was going to happen. Both teams played exactly the way I thought they were going to play, and it came out with the exact correct score outline. It was a predictable but very exciting game to watch. And I think Chelsea are going to have no trouble dispatching of West Ham in this game. I'm going to go for a very confident 3-0 win to Frank Lampard and the Chelsea boys. Coming up next, we have Liverpool up against Brighton. Now, in the previous week, Brighton getting beaten by Leicester. Dunk was unavailable, but I think Brighton got, I guess, fortunate to only lose by the 2 goals. Leicester were just all over them, as Leicester have been this season. And Liverpool, they were fortunate, but at the same time, you make your own luck to get away with the win at Crystal Palace, which again, that game went exactly how I thought it would. I thought it would be contested and very not a walk in the park for Liverpool as some people might expect, whereas this one, I do think it will be relatively easy at Anfield. I'm going to go for a 4-0 win to Liverpool. I think this is going to be a very one-sided affair. The next game is Tottenham up against Bournemouth. Now, Tottenham coming off the back of their first away win in the Premier League since January against West Ham, and Bournemouth losing out to Wolves in their previous fixture. I think Tottenham are going to win this one, and I think it's going to be quite comfortable. There's not much more I can say about it. I'm going to go for a 4-1 scoreline in favour of Tottenham Hotspur. Now, the next game is a very, very interesting one, a clash right by the bottom of the table. Southampton unlucky not to get the 3 points against Arsenal, and Watford just getting beaten once again very comfortably by Burnley. I'm going for a home win for Southampton this time to continue the woes for Watford. Woeful Watford, we should call them. I'm going for a Southampton 2-1 win in this fixture. I think it's going to be close, but Southampton should have enough. If they play like they did against Arsenal for the most part, they should be able to beat Watford, particularly at St Mary's, so I'm going to go for a Southampton win here. Now, the next game does not fill me with confidence whatsoever. It is Norwich versus Arsenal. Arsenal's away form isn't great. They haven't won a game in the Premier League for nearly 2 months, and it's not looking good. Norwich, on the other hand, just come off a win against Everton at Goodison Park, one of the more traditionally difficult places to travel to in the Premier League, and Norwich make light work of Everton, which is very, very strange. But in a similar fashion, when Norwich beat Manchester City, after that, results did not favour them, and that Everton game was the first one they really looked decent. And Arsenal need a result after a performance like that at the Emirates. So I'm going to go for a very close game, but I've predicted Arsenal to win 2-1 away from home before correctly, and I'm going to predict them to do the same again here. I'm predicting Arsenal to win this one 2-1, but it will not be convincing, it will not be comfortable, it will be frustrating. The next game is Wolves up against Sheffield United. Wolves, as I said a few weeks ago, despite their shaky start, they haven't really lost many games at all. They were drawing a lot. As I said, they are climbing their way back up the table. They're really quite high up the table now. And Sheffield United absolutely flying. When I saw they went 2-0 up against Man United, I thought, yeah, they've actually gone and won. They're actually stapling themselves in the Premier League, and it is great to see. But then, of course, the drama happened. It was a draw in the end. So I'm going to go for another draw here. Sheffield away from home. I think that they're always on for a draw. Wolves this season, always on for a draw. 1-1. Seems like a great scoreline. So yes, I'm going for a 1-1 score prediction in this fixture. I can really see that happening. I think it'll either be 1-1 or like 2-0 to Wolves, and Sheffield will just have a random result where they don't do what they've been doing for the last few weeks, and Wolves will actually win, like when they beat Man City 2-0. But I'm going for a 1-1 score draw in this fixture. Now, the next one, high-flying Leicester up against Everton. I think this is going to be simple enough for Leicester. Again, Everton's a weird team because they've been underperforming consistently this season, but it wouldn't surprise you if they just sneak in and win a game like this. But I still just don't think it's going to happen. I think Leicester are playing too well. They've got the best form in the league right now because Liverpool, they drew against Man United in the recent few games. So in the last 5 games at least, Leicester, 5 wins. They're looking amazing. I'm going to go for a Leicester win here at the King Power Stadium, a very difficult place to go. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win to the Foxes in this fixture, and that just leaves Manchester United up against Aston Villa. That 10-minute period where Man United scored 3 goals definitely saved themselves from an embarrassing result. And still, despite the point they got, an embarrassing performance. Anyone could have won that game, but I think Manchester United are lucky in the end. But at the same time, I guess they probably did deserve a draw. But over the course of the entire game, on average, they were outplayed by Sheffield United. And it is worrying signs. But luckily, they're up against Aston Villa. And I don't think Villa will be able to go to Old Trafford and get something. I still think we're yet to see the best from Villa. They will come good eventually. I mean, I predicted them to beat Newcastle in the last game week. You guys know how that happened. I predicted a 2-1 win, but at the time of recording the game day, I'm not entirely sure if they're going to be able to get the win from Newcastle, to be honest. It might be more of a 1-1 draw situation, or possibly even a Newcastle win. I'm really on the fence there, but I don't think it's Aston Villa's week this week. I think Manchester United are going to beat them at Old Trafford 3-1. So that is going to do it for the Week 14 Premier League predictions. Massive shout out to all of you for the support on the channel. We've got up over 100 subscribers in the last week, which is ridiculous. That's amazing. Like I said, if you want to see the TF90 Tips Instagram, let me know down in the comments. If you ever do a little bet and you want to just put it in the comments, let me know how you got on, then I will by all means read it. Comment your predictions for a chance to be featured in the next episode, and I will see you in the next video very soon.